Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Nameless Show. I'll be your host, domentora, on this beautiful Wednesday, January 20th, 2016. Hope everybody has a good day. I know I will. I bet it will. Cat, why do you decide to start yelling as soon as I start recording? That bothers me. Obviously, I've got a few things today to get into before I can actually talk about what I want to talk about. Pardon me. So let's go ahead and address those. First off, I have no idea what the audio quality of this video is going to sound like. The place I work at had a pair of Beats, like the nice ones, on clearance for $35. I needed a new gaming headset. I had $35. Actually, I've been saving up for it a while. We had them for a while. I just kind of had been hiding them. Welcome to retail, people. So I went ahead and picked them up. They make a great gaming headset. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I'm going to go ahead and try them for this recording. I'm recording kind of late, Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and I didn't really want to set up the computer and the mic and all that stuff. I normally would hold my phone out to my face instead, but I want to give it a shot with the Beats and see what they sound like. It's very interesting because with the Beats, with that noise canceling, you're really getting, or I guess with any noise canceling studio quality headphone, you're really getting the feel, the sound of what you actually sound like, because you're not hearing anything else, and you're really hearing yourself and your voice. And I think it's interesting, and it's an experience I've never really had before while recording. Obviously for this show, but for anything else I've done on YouTube in the past. So I want to go ahead and give it a shot and see how it works. If the audio quality is terrible, I'll very quickly change into go back to my standard setup, either just straight off of the iPhone or with the studio mic. We're working on that. It's a work in progress. Speaking of work in progress, though, domentora, what the fuck? You missed 3 episodes. That's a week. You just started the show, you can't be missing a week. That's ridiculous. What happened? Well, life happens. I took a sociology course one time. Best class I've ever taken in my collegiate career. And the professor on day one, addressed us like adults, treated us like adults, and that was very nice. And one of the things he said was, I'm not going to grade you on attendance. I'm grading you on your work and performance, because I understand that life happens. And you can't be at every class. Now, I want you to, email me ahead of time if you can, or if it's an emergency, get in contact with me somehow as soon as you can, so I know what's going on and all that good stuff. But I understand life happens. I understand, sometimes you may not be able to make it to every class, and that's something that just really stuck with me. And on one hand, it's been a bad thing, because it's a phrase that I've used to excuse irresponsible behavior. Maybe I'm late to work today, something like that. But I think it still rings pretty true. Life happens sometimes, and there's not much you can always do about it. And sometimes it gets in the way of things you're trying to do, and that's what happened today. It just got in the way, or I guess the last 3 shows that I missed. Life got in the way. Life happened. I also have to pardon me, a little under the weather. Little phlegmy, show must go on. Drinking the Dr. Pepper is probably not going to help. But once again, the show is officially sponsored by Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper, the delicious drink. You guys can't keep getting these free plugs. You're eventually going to have to pay me in delicious non-diet soda, because diet is just, it's piss water. I'm sorry, guys. It's piss water. Swallowing sounds very weird with this headset. There's your random fact for the day. So, life kind of happened, and I got a little bit busy. A friend had a birthday, which actually had me going out, I think three nights, 2 of which were nights I'd planned to record, and then Sunday, when I was going to record the show, it was my day off. I actually ended up getting called into work. You're never fully free when you're in a management position, I guess. Doesn't matter if you're hourly or salary, you're never fully free. So that killed Monday, and then the motivation just wasn't there. to keep it going. I was kind of down on myself. I'd missed 2 days in a row. I probably still could have made the Monday one, but executive decided not to. I wish I had, but that's what happened. On the bright side, here I am. We're back. I said I was going to do this, and I'm doing this. Now, what do we learn? We always have to learn something. We always got to learn a lesson from our mistakes. And I think the biggest takeaway for me after this is pretty simple. I need to, until or unless I can justify a very serious and real time commitment to this that would overshadow social obligations or going into work on my day off. I need to be prepared for the eventuality and for the occasional instance in which I can't record the show or before it's due. So I think the solution that I've come up with is, obviously I try to keep the show topical. Like I try to keep it modern. But we've had a few episodes so far. I think we've had 4 episodes so far, 2 of which have been on topics that are really just more personal, more, me, not really anything that needs a timestamp to it, not really anything that's extremely relevant when you're listening to it, not a current event like the first episode with the Oregon standoff, which is still fucking going on, might I add. Send in the ATF. They're real good at ending this shit. I'm just saying, they're super good at ending this kind of shit. ATF, sorry, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Yeah, ATF. They're super good at ending this kind of standoff bullshit with extremist idiots. I'm just spitballing here. But, obviously not every show is going to require a time-relevant listen, because not every show is going to be over a time-relevant topic. Again, I apologize. Fleming a little under the weather. Oh my goodness. I should actually start thinking about doing cuts and edits in this. Good Lord. So, what I need to do, and I can't really give you a time frame on when I'm going to sit down and do this. This is just on my ever increasingly large to-do list, is to sit down and record 2, 3, 4, maybe even episodes of the show for filler to use on those days where I can't pre-record the show and I can't get up early enough to make the show happen. Now, David, why not just get up early the next morning? Well, that's a bit of a pickle. Obviously, I don't stream the show. I don't do a live broadcast. Part of it's my work schedule. But the biggest part of it is just because I don't do that live broadcast, which may be something we look into the future. We'll see. I have to record it ahead of time, so that's 30 minutes to an hour on average. Within that 30-minute to an hour time frame of recording, transfer the computer, get the thumbnail, get the background, all that. That's another 15 minutes. Rendering it out on my horrible laptop. Thanks, Intel. Thank you for making Pentium. Thank you for making that pile of shit. Render it out on my laptop. It's maybe another 20 minutes or so. Because even though it's just audio, I still render it in full HD. I feel I owe that. I've got a pretty good track record of HD content, and I want to keep it like that. Plus, rendering it in the HD keeps as good of a voice quality as I can when I'm using an untested microphone like I am right now. So might as well just go big or go home, right? 1080p, 60 all day. So, and then you've got the upload, the upload time, the processing time, the tags, all that good stuff. So what it really comes down to is just there's not enough time for me to do it in the mornings. I need to wake up, to be safe, give it about 3 hours before the show, for me to start recording. let alone when I have to wake up before the show. And because I have the show at 9 Central, tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's starting recording around 6 in the morning to allow time to get up, get ready, get the sleep out of my eyes. That's closer to about 5:45, and it's just not practical for me. I'm a 10 hours of sleep a night guy. I never get my 10 hours, but that's what I prefer and how I function best. And it's a lot easier to stay up late and record the night before than it is to try to get up early and get the recording done that way. So that's why I've been doing it this way. But unfortunately, it's meant there's been a few times so far already that we missed a show. I've never had one late, but I've had a couple missed. On the list of it's very high on the list of things to work on. So my next day off that I don't have commitments, which is actually looking like here this next Sunday. The big task, the big goal, the big thing we're going to be doing is simply recording a bunch of episodes of the show. I figure 4 episodes, 3, maybe 4 hours to record, and then I can just sit back, let things render, and take care of everything else I need to take care of with my day off. So I think that's going to be our plan. I do apologize for the lack of content, though. At the very least, I should have uploaded a video explaining what was going on. On the bright side, birthday parties were consistently great, and yeah, if it helps, I was having a great time while I was not putting out a show for you guys to listen to. So what? Okay, David. So what are we talking about today? I assume it's going to be something topical, right? We're going to be talking about something important, something relevant, something we need to know. Well, yeah, kinda. What I really want to talk about is the Flint water crisis. But it's a topic I feel like I really need to do actual research on. The Oregon standoff was something that I, saw briefly, hadn't done an extraordinary amount of research on, and was just passionate enough about it to put out the show. With this thing going on in Flint, I said I really want to get some research on it. I really want to know I want to have facts to give you. I want to have quotes. I want to have a backstory. I really want to dive into that topic. So, well, that's what you'll expect from the next episode, and then that's what you'll be getting the next episode. It's not what I want to talk about today. Today, I want to talk about hypocrisy with regards to a certain Mr. Trump and some of the things he's so very proud of and says he stands for. Now, I'm going to do my best to not be partisan with my show, because obviously it's an opinion piece. I'm sharing my opinions on these topics. The goal is not to alienate one side of the political fence or alienate the another, because in reality, I largely agree with both parties. It's just I may agree with the Republican Party on one topic, and I may agree with the Democratic Party on another topic. I may agree with an entirely different party on a third topic. So I don't really want to get ahead and just label myself as a supporter of one party or another. I can say, I'll go ahead and tell you, I am registered as a Republican, which is something that actually surprises a lot of people who know me well enough to know me, but not well enough to know my voting registration status. The reason I'm registered as a Republican, and this is actually something that I think people nationwide should look into, the laws in their states regarding this, is in my state, you have to be registered in the party to vote in the primary, which I think makes sense. I think it can reduce the incidence of. I think in that instance, it can help the political process. But as part of that, the state I live in is very, very, very conservative with its politics, at least on a local level. And there are often times in which voters are not given the opportunity to vote, if that makes sense. I'll give you an example. A local election recently, well, the most recent one I can think of, had 3 Republicans running with no Democrats running, which meant that there was a Republican primary for the office in question, but there was no general because there was no opposition. So whoever won the Republican primary won the job. There was nobody else to vote for. And I've been told before, well, you know, if more people register Democrat, more Democrats will run. And that could be a very valid and serious point. I respect that. But it's not going to be me. I want to have that say. So I registered Republican, even though it's not always the party I agree with. Neither is the Democrats. So I am registered Republican, but I have a pretty even voting track record between the two parties and even some third parties. Who I'm registered as does not really dictate which party gets my vote more often than not. But Donald Trump is definitely not getting my vote. Now, I could do 1,000 shows talking about this buffoon of a human being. But what I want to talk about right now, real quick, because this isn't going to be a long show. I said a little under the weather. But what I want to talk about right now are his clothing lines. Very specifically, the Make America Great Again hats. Now, we've all seen this hats, and we've all seen the slogan, and I'm sure you, like me, have all wondered which America he's wanting to throw us back to, what era he's thinking of when he's talking about making it great again. I think it's pretty, well, it's not great right now, but it's largely people with that kind of mindset that have ruined it, but that's not the point. The point is the hats, the Make America Great Again hats. What does that mean? I don't care. Because I'll tell you what I get out of those Make America Great hats. And it's very similar to how I feel about the idea of a President Donald Trump. And that's bullshit. See, his Make America Great Again hats, as you probably noticed, it's a meme that has been circulated 1,000 times at this point, are actually made in China. Once again, this is a man who's gone out of his way to rail against China. I'm not trying to get political here. I guess there's things we can rail against China for, and there's things we're happy to have China for. But he's gone out of his way to rail against China, including a major thing of his bringing jobs back to the U.S. from China, right? There's been this huge thing. He hates China. He hates China. I'm Donald Trump, and I hate China because they made the horrible thing on my head, and now I hate him. Well, you know what else? I'm not talking about his hair. I'm not talking about his hair. I'm talking about the hat. That's right. The Make America Great Again hat. You want to take a guess where the tag says that sucker was made? Here's a hint. It's not Texas. It's not Alabama. You want to try a third time? How about China? No way. All right, you know what? Those must just be knockoffs, right? There's no way a presidential candidate so intent on being anti-China in any way he could think of would have the hats bearing the slogan he's so proud of, and yet hasn't really explained what it means. In China, there's no way, right? Or maybe he just doesn't know about it, right? That could also be. Maybe he just doesn't know about it. So let's dive a little bit further into the fashion of the Trump. It's like the Passion of the Christ, only, instead of being a good, person, he's Donald Trump. The Donald Trump signature collection. I've gone out of my way looking for articles of clothing with that signature collection, pictures, photos, anything I could find. I actually did a bare minimum amount of research on this. You know how many were made in America? And I'm not talking individual garments. You know what? I'm talking like fashion styles. Like, this particular style jacket was made in America, something like that. You want to guess? 5, 6, 7. I counted a big fat old 0. And what's even more ironic, actually, is that of the clothing that I was able to see, and unfortunately none of it was firsthand because I don't know anybody who would ever own that horrible human being's clothing. On that list and photo after photo after photo of the Donald J. Trump signature collection, ooh, signature, was, picture that as our presidential signature. That'd be interesting, right? You'd have to use all those pens to make that signature. That'd be, if it wasn't gaudy before, God knows it'll be gaudy now. All those pieces of clothing were not made in the U.S. So where are they made? Maybe Taiwan? Right? Maybe in India? Maybe? What about Mexico? I mean, he's not a fan of Mexicans, probably more so than he hates the Chinese, but I don't know. I guess you can have holes in the wall to drive trucks full of cheaply made, underpaid clothes to, right? Yeah, that makes sense. So maybe Mexico. Well, no. Now, as it turns out, every single piece of the Donald J. Trump signature collection that I could find have been made right in the good old China. Every single piece. Now, Trump, I'm not really sure which America you're referring to the again part of. I'm not sure if it's the sexism and the racism of the 50s or various decisions during the made between the 40s and 80s that ruined the modern economy and have made life miserable for the majority of people in my generation who are paying for those mistakes. I'm not really sure what era you're talking about. Maybe Jim Crow era. You're a racist. It seems like that would be pretty accurate. But I'm very curious about your clothing. Saying you hate the American jobs, going to China, I hate 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 China. And then taking advantage of the system you get from China, that's hypocrisy, right? Like, I'll give you kind of a comparison. I'm a big fan of Call of Duty, as is pretty obvious to anyone who's watched this channel for anything other than the Nameless show. And in the first Black Ops game, there was a gun called the FAMAS. It was overpowered to all hell. It was hands down the best gun in the game. It just, if you weren't running the FAMAS, you were going to lose gunfights, not because of your skill, not because of your internet connection, but because your gun wasn't as good as the gun the other person was carrying. And I knew it was overpowered, and I said, hey, this thing's overpowered. But I still used it all the time. So where is that hypocrisy different, right? Where's the difference in that hypocrisy? You're saying this thing's overpowered. You're saying this thing needs to be fixed, but you're still taking advantage of it. What's the difference there? Well, part of that difference is that I'm not trying to run for president and I'm not being a racist dick. But the other large part of that difference is that my taking advantage of the advantage offered does not directly go against what I'm trying to make people think I stand for. Because at no point did I ever say, you know, I'm never going to use this gun until it's fixed. We need to boycott Call of Duty until they release a patch fixing this gun. I just said, oh man, this gun's more powerful than the others. They should probably fix that. In the meantime, I'm going to keep using it. And you know what? If that was his point of view, then maybe, you know, we can't even be that mad at him, right? If his point of view was, well, you know, I think a lot of the overseas jobs and the stuff being shipped in from China at cheap cost hurts America, but it's more financially beneficial for my company. So until I become president and can change it, I'm going to take advantage of it. And if that was his stance, or even if that is his actual stance, if it was that well put, then we can't. Then we wouldn't be able to be mad about this, because you can't fault somebody for taking advantage of a positive situation, right? Well, unless it hurts other people. And I think in a much bigger way than my using a video game weapon that was significantly stronger than the other video game weapons, Donald Trump's hypocrisy on China has a real negative effect on other people. In terms of not only fueling prejudice and racism and bigotry toward China, but in getting his followers and constituents to buy in to what he's saying. And what he's saying is essentially, more often than not, about China and about Muslims and about Mexicans and about pretty much anybody he doesn't overly fancy, that he doesn't like them. Now he's racist. And it fuels that racist ideology that many of his supporters do claim. And I'm not, you know, going to come out and say that everybody who likes Donald Trump is a racist. I'm sure that's not true. But I will bet there are significantly more active racists. I want to make that distinction because, you know, I think everybody, even especially white males, have almost a predisposition towards racism ingrained into them. And that, for the record, owning up to that doesn't mean admitting that you're a horrible racist. I'm not saying that you're a horrible, godless racist who hates all people. There's a difference between active and passive and not realizing you're doing it. I think it fuels racism. And there's where his hypocrisy goes beyond, well, domentora, you said that gun's overpowered, but you're still using it. Come on now. And into the realm of, how can we take him seriously? How can we take anything he's saying as a candidate seriously when he can't live by his own statement? It's almost a case of, I would respect him more as a candidate and as a person if he just came out and said, hey, yeah, my Make America Great hats are Great Again hats are made in China. It's super cheap. You know, when I become president, I'm going to take care of this tax credit stuff and get jobs back in America. But until they come back for America, I'm not going to put myself at a disadvantage to the other politicians who are also making their stuff in China by making mine in the U.S. where it's more expensive. That's a point of view and a stance that kind of has to be respected, right? You know, if it were accurate. Because every piece of merch from, we'll say, Bernie Sanders, the horrible socialist who hates America, right? Socialism, anti-America, even though our roads and bridges and schools and Social Security and fair labor practice laws are all a result of, you know, American socialism. That's obviously not the point I'm trying to make here. The point I'm trying to make is this horrible socialist Bernie Sanders is making his merch in the U.S. with a grassroots campaign that is actively refusing large money donations and corporate backing. And yet Donald Trump, who is raking in corporate backing and has maybe billions of dollars. We're really not sure how much money he has, but with all the failed businesses. Forbes actually recently adjusted their estimation of his net value following a reveal of another failed business venture. What a surprise. We're going to hire a failed businessman to run our country. We could always do Carly Fiorina, whatever. I don't need to know her name. She's not going to get elected. Another failed business person. So Bernie Sanders, with less money available, is able to make his merch in America. Almost like he is making America great. I'm not going to say great again because I don't know what the point of reference is there, but it's giving Americans a job, right? If it's made in America. It doesn't even say made in North America. It just says made in America with the American flag and by America. And I think in context we can all understand, I mean the United States. And that's where the hypocrisy crosses the line from a casual level of, yeah, I don't like this thing, I'm going to fix this thing, but doesn't mean I'm not going to take advantage of it until it's fixed. And into the realms of, we can't trust that. Because Bernie is killing it in the polls. He's winning. He's doing great. He's catching up to Hillary Clinton. And despite what news outlets would have you think when they write stories on it, every time they release an a public opinion poll, not only does Bernie have a significant lead on Hillary Clinton, or at least when they who won the debate, Bernie wins more often. It's Bernie. It's by a lot. But the public opinion polls even released of who would you vote for president? Bernie beats out Trump. And many said, now we'll see what happens when candidates drop off and narrow down. I haven't seen one of these in a while since various candidates have pulled out of the race. But Bernie's movement is a big deal. He doesn't make the headlines that Trump is making because he doesn't say the outlandish, horrible, racist, headline-grabbing things that Trump says. But he's doing pretty damn well in the polls. He's not at that significant disadvantage that somebody else playing that video game with me would be if they used a different gun other than the one I am. And it's almost as if, talking about how much he loves America and wants to help America is actually making him stand out. Because he's actively doing it. And that's where your difference is. You have to put your money where your mouth is in this situation. And if you're going to say, make America great again, and I'm going to put Americans to work, and all this other stuff, you have to exemplify that in your own life. You can't use religion as a fight against gay marriage and then proceed to cheat in your own straight marriage, right? No one could fairly take your statement seriously after that. So why have we become so accepting, both as a populace and as a party? Because once again, I'm registered Republican. Why have we become so accepting of this man's consistent refusal to live the way he wants us to live? And I think part of it is because the Republican Party, much like every party, but I think especially the Republican Party, wants to hear what they want to hear. I think we don't want to be challenged. We want things a very specific way, and anyone who promises to make it that way, even if they don't have a good game plan on how to do it, even if the things they say are racist and horrible, even if they don't have a good track record of keeping up with the things they say, I think because their promises don't involve compromise, they don't involve the idea that maybe not everything you want to have happen will happen, that's why they get their votes, and that's why they get their support. And now the Democratic Party is also hugely flawed with this. Bernie Sanders, who I was referencing a while ago, has promised some insane things, and there are legitimate questions on how those things are going to be funded and how he's actually going to be able to do all of the things, the free college and the health care plan that will save families on average something like about $5,000 a year. How are you going to enact that? Large taxes on the wealthy, while I think necessary, aren't going to fund every program that he wants to do. Where does he want to get this money from? No candidate's perfect, and every party is guilty of having a group, large or small, that is so intent on hearing what they want to hear, and their candidate doing exactly what, or at least saying exactly what they want them to say, even if they can't actually do it, that it becomes blinded. Unfortunately, that group, whether minority or majority, becomes the face of the party. And right now, the face of the party is Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump, and it's his supporters. And his supporters say largely racist, sexist, homophobic things that make the rest of the world look at us and say, what is wrong with you? That take it to the point where Parliament and the United Kingdom is actually having talks about banning him from the United Kingdom, which, childish, is not something I think should actually happen. He's a bigot and a monster. He's not a good guy. But that's more show than anything else. That's political showmanship. I think we all can acknowledge and understand that. But the showmanship wouldn't be happening if he wasn't a racist, sexist prick. Right? Right. So Donald Trump, with his hats and his signature collection made in China. The question you got to ask yourself is, if he's going to say all these things and not live up to them in his own life, how can I trust that anything he says he wants to do for the country, good or bad, if we're going to pretend you're a supporter of Donald Trump. We're going to pretend I'm a supporter of Donald Trump for a second. Even if I agree with everything he says, and I want the wall, and I want this, and I want that, and I want to register every single Muslim in America, which, by the way, first they came for the communists, and I did not speak out. Next they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out. Then they came for the third thing that I don't remember, and I did not speak out. And then they came for me. Do we remember that very famous quote regarding the Holocaust? I think we do. First he came for the Muslims. I did not speak out. Then he came for the Mexicans, and I did not speak out. Then he came for the Chinese, and I did not speak out. Then he came for me. Now, I doubt anyone's going to come after me. I'm a white Christian male. But my point remains. White privilege, people. It sucks for everyone who's not white or male. Because it's really more just, it's like white male privilege, then white female privilege, then I'm not even going to try to order it from there because that'll just sound 1,000 times more racist than anything I could ever say in my life. I'd like to stress that I don't ever intend racism on this show. The quote stands. First they came, and then they came, and then they came for me, right? So, let's think about it here. We're going to pretend that I'm a Trump supporter, that I'm a Trump fan, that I just want a big old heap and scoop of Trump in the White House, right? If I can't trust him to live himself by the standards that he wants to set for the country, you know, if I'm a big fan of the idea of just shutting down ties with with China and bringing all the jobs back to America, which personally I would like Americans to have more jobs. I don't think people understand that's going to cost money. Putting Americans back to work, Americans do cost more than overseas. Your Walmart underwear is going to take a price jump. And you need to understand that. Some of your clothes, even some of your food, is going to take a price hike if these jobs are brought back to America. And you need to be willing to pay that price. Because if you're not willing to pay the price at the register to put Americans back to work, then you don't want to put Americans back to work. That's a topic for a different day. But we'll keep the point and dive into that topic on a later date. If you don't want to pay the price to put Americans back to work at the register, then you don't actually want to put Americans back to work. It's as simple as that. But say I'm anti-China, I agree with everything he said so far, 100%. I feel the exact same way, Mr. Trump. 110%. What you feel is what I feel. But I don't think you actually feel what I feel, right? Because while you're saying this stuff about how much, you don't like China and the jobs, and you don't like China and the communists and all this, all your stuff is still made in China. So I think rather clearly, I can't trust you to uphold this anti-China bias that you're so very proud of, and that I, as a supporter of Trump, want, right? So while we're going to shift out of my pretend support of Trump here, while we, the majority of the educated and sound-minded American public think Donald Trump is a buffoon and pray nightly to whatever deity we have that he does not become president, Donald Trump supporters should really be the ones concerned here, because they're supporting a political candidate who has shown a complete disregard for the rules and ideas he's set forth during his campaigning. And if he can't live by his own wants for this country, can he or anyone else really justify them? And the answer is no. So there's my challenge to you, Donald Trump supporters listening to this show, of which I'm sure there are none. Explain to me. Explain to me how you can vote for and trust and support somebody who so actively goes against what they say they want out of the country. And once again, I'm saying that with full understanding that a lot of politicians do this. There's not a single politician during any fact-checking after any debate that hasn't been guilty of lying. Bernie Sanders isn't even, many people love Bernie Sanders and he's an honest guy. Bernie Sanders isn't even highest on that list. He's high. He's higher than every person in the GOP. I think Martin O'Malley, believe it or not, is the highest of candidates still in the race, as it were. But I think with Trump, fact-checking becomes hard. Because you're no longer trying to figure out what he's saying that's false. You're almost hunting for what he's saying that's true. And I think if you really look at him as a person, and the practices of his private business and of his campaign, not necessarily before the campaign began, because it's not overly fair to judge him on this China thing for clothing that was out before the campaign began. Though it is fairly indicative of him and his thought process. But look at him and his private business now and the way they run, and what he says and whether that reflects on his actions. And as a Trump supporter, I'm talking to you directly, Trump supporter out there. if you support that ideology, do you really trust that man to fulfill it? Do you really trust a guy who took out a small loan of $1 million to get his business started? A small loan of $1 million, which I don't know anybody in my life who could get. And at the very least, my parents and their friends are very successful people. The man who has his Make America Great Again hats made in China, do you really trust him to uphold your bigoted, xenophobic, racist, prejudiced views? I do hope the answer is no. Because so far, he's proven that answer to be correct. Thank you, everybody, for watching the Nameless Show, or at least listening to it. It is more of a podcast than anything else, after all. Like, favorite, comment, subscribe, share. Share is the absolute best thing you can possibly do for me and for the show. So if you enjoyed the show, share the hell of it. If you hated the show, share the hell of it. And be like, oh my God, listen to this buffoon complaining about not getting shows done because of his social life. Ooh, your life's hard. Sorry. Or even better, listen to this buffoon whine about the Trumpster. What a silly. What a typical millennial. Typical liberal millennial who's registered as a Republican and has campaigned for candidates on both sides of the fence. Give it a like, give it a share, give it a comment, ignite the debate. If you're a Trump fan, I'm not going to ask you to be respectful in the debate in the comments. I just safely assume you won't be. But everybody else, be nice, be respectful. Shoot out the comments, give me a little bit of debate. Tell me what you think. Is it hypocritical of him to be this anti-China and still get his stuff made in China? Or is he, similar to me in that video game, just taking advantage of a broken system until he can fix it? And if that is the case, is it right for him to take advantage of the broken system? Give me your thoughts. I'm interested in your thoughts. I want to hear from you. Hope everybody has a great Wednesday, January 20th, 2016. This has been The Nameless Show. Went a little bit longer than I intended. That'll be fine. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you listened all the way through. Have a great day.